feel like in today's AI world, it should be able to know this is like a Torah study and say, preparing to like, feels like that's not that hard a lift today. Okay, we are online. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome anyone joining us on the internet to our Torah study here in Topeka, Kansas. I'm going to share my screen as we are. Oop, that's not right. That is right. Okay. So now I have it up and we're in First Kings chapter 22. First, we'll start with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. If you say amen, you get full credit. There you go. I should really get a stamp or something for that. But I guess to be fair, I shouldn't say that because it's not me giving the credit, right? It's God, so it's like I'm just saying that that's what's happening. Okay, so here we are, and we had just left off with Achav is in a bad spot, and but he's not going to die because he asked for, he humbled himself before God. And so God said, well, it can be after his death, which is something that's happened before also in these kings, where someone's been like, well, okay, there's some repentance here, so we won't make it on him, we'll make it on, the next one. That's the punishment, but we want to, there's some value, I think, to also showing that repentance has reward in a way, which is why when these kings do repent, they are spared through their lifetime, perhaps. Anyway, so we are here, and we're told there was a lull of 3 years with no war between Aram and Israel. In the 3rd year, King Jehoshaphat of Judah, which is a great one. It's Yehoshaphat in Hebrew for anyone who thinks it's very different. It's not. King Yehoshaphat of Judah came to visit the king of Israel. The king of Israel said to his courtiers, "You know that Ramoth Gilead belongs to us, and yet we do nothing to recover it from the hands of the king of Aram." And he said to Jehoshaphat, "Will you come with me to battle at Ramoth Gilead?" Jehoshaphat answered the king of Israel, "I will do what you do. My troops shall be your troops. My horses shall be your horses." What's interesting about this, the formulation sounds somewhat similar to Ruth's formulation of her kind of declaring that she'll go with Naomi back to Israel, and that her people will be right. Exactly. By changing the pronouns of it, I'm gonna mess up the words of it, but you know what I'm saying. That she said, your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." And it's interesting that we get here, which is obviously earlier than that. Uh, in any event. Okay. So, but Jehoshaphat said further to the king of Israel, "Please first inquire of God." Which is interesting, right? Why is that interesting?
It's upside down.
Why is it upside down?
He should have inquired of God before he said, "My horses will be your horses, my troops will be
a little late."
Okay, so you are right. You did already come out with your full-throated thing, but maybe. What's also weird about it?
King of Israel was not particularly.
Well, also, I mean, the temple is in
Oh,
is in Judah,
right.
And the king of Judah is asking the king of Israel, where they have that he should be the one to inquire of God. It seems like that might be a little upside down too. Um, um, okay, so the king of Israel gathered the prophets, about 400 of them, and asked them, "Shall I march upon Ramoth Gilead for battle, or shall I not?" "March," they said, "and the sovereign will deliver it into your majesty's hands." God will deliver it into your majesty's hands is another way of reading that. But Jehoshaphat, king of Israel, asked, "Isn't there another prophet of God here through whom we can inquire?" And the king of Israel answered Jehoshaphat, "There is one more through whom we can inquire of God, but I hate him, because he never prophesies anything good for me, but only misfortune." And this is Michayehu, which it says is Michaiah, like Micah, but with the divine attachment on the end. So Michayahu, son of Imlah. But King Jehoshaphat said, "Don't say that, Your Majesty. Don't." It's like, hey, we're both kings, I guess, but like, we're both Jewish kings. You're not supposed to say stuff like that about. This is very honestly, quite frankly, and again, I don't like to make it's like I'm watching a press conference these days of politicians. It's just like, quite frankly, he never says anything nice about me, and I don't like him. If only he would say nice things about me. And it's like, and this other king is like, "Hey, okay, sure, like I get thinking that, but maybe don't say it out loud." Is essentially what the king is saying back to him here. It's like, hey, just maybe don't say that out loud, because it's just not, it's not a good thing to say out loud. Like, just don't do that. So he said, "Don't speak ill of a prophet." He says, "Don't say that, Your Majesty." Um, and again, Jehoshaphat is king of Judah, where there may be a little more. We do get the sense throughout both these books of First and Second Kings that the kings, again, Judah is still of the Davidic line, so it makes a little sense, especially knowing what we know about how important the line of David is, that they're better kings generally, and there will be more, if any, good kings. There are certainly some from the line in Judah, much more so than we get of nobility and goodness in the line of kings and usurpers and double usurpers that we get in the kingdom of Israel. So, you kind of got, in some ways, it's starting to look, in the already not so long since they've split, like there's a little bit of funhouse mirror happening, where like you've got the Judah kingdom and then you've got whatever's warping into whatever's happening up north. Okay, so the king of Israel summoned an officer and said, "Bring Micaiah, son of Imlah, to at once." The king of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah were seated on their thrones, so they each had a throne, arrayed in their robes on the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. Which is an interesting place for them to be doing it, and all the prophets were prophesying before them. Tzidkiah, son of Kenaanah, had provided himself with iron horns, and he said, "כה אמר Adonai, with these you shall gore the Arameans till you make an end of them." And all the other prophets were prophesying similarly. "March upon Ramoth Gilead, and triumph. God will deliver it into your majesty's hands." The messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah said to him, "Look, the words of the prophets are with one accord favorable to the king. Let your word be like that of the rest of them. Speak a favorable word." right? So essentially, hey, just warning you, when you go to this room, every other of these 400 prophets has already said it's a great idea to attack, to take back this land that was promised by God in the borders of the land of Israel. And the kingdoms are working together, which may be, quite frankly, a reason some of these prophets are supporting such an. This is as united as the kingdoms have been, as united since they split. However, the job of a prophet isn't to take politics into account. And so Michaiah says, Michayahu here it says, as God lives, I will speak only what God tells me. Which it seems that again he should have already known, because that's the clear, most simple, basic rule of prophecy. When he came before the king asked him, Michayahu, shall we march upon Ramoth Gilead for battle, or shall we not? He answered him, march and triumph. God will deliver it into your majesty's hands. The king said to him, how many times must I adjure you to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of God? Then he said, I saw all Israel scattered over the hills like sheep without a shepherd. And God said, these have no master. Let everyone return home in safety. Didn't I tell you? So that probably landed very much unfortunately, right? He shows up. What happens here? He shows up and he mockingly says what he's been told to say. And he's like, yes, 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 you're going to win. It's going to be great. Big victory. And the guy's like, you're supposed to speak in the name of God. He's like, okay, well, you're not going to like it, but this is what I've got to tell you. And so here, Achav, again, we don't get here, it doesn't say Achav, but we can assume it's still Achav. We are assuming it's still Achav. It says the king of Israel. And didn't I tell you, said the king of Israel to Jehoshaphat, that he would not prophesy good fortune for me, but only misfortune? But Micaiah said, I call upon you to hear the word of God. I saw God seated upon a throne, with all the host of heaven standing in attendance, to the right and to the left. God asked, who will entice Achav? Oh, there you go. So that he will march and fall at Ramoth Gilead. Then one said thus, and another said thus. Until a certain spirit came forward and stood before God and said, I will entice him. How? God asked him. And he replied, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. Then God said, you will entice and you will prevail. Go out and do it. So God has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets of yours, for God has decreed disaster upon you. Thereupon, Tzidkiyahu, son of Hananiah, stepped up and struck Michayahu on the cheek, and he demanded, which way did the Spirit of God pass from me to speak with you? In other words, he's saying that I'm a more senior prophet than you, and it's very. We have in the rabbinate. The rabbis teach that a student shouldn't teach in front of their teacher. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that they should literally stay silent when their teacher is around, but rather that they shouldn't upstage them. And so here we essentially get the prophetic version of that. He's saying, you're upstaging me. You're saying you have a true prophecy and that I have a false one, and I'm your senior, essentially. And that's very inappropriate. And Michayahu said, you'll find out on the day when you try to hide in the innermost room. Not really sure what that means, but we'll find out shortly. Then the king of Israel said, take Michayahu and turn him over to Ammon, the city's governor, and to Prince Joash, and say, the king's orders are, put this fellow in prison, and let his fare be scant bread and scant water until I come home safe. So what? We're going to put him in jail, and if I great, I'll come home, and that'll be great. To which Michayahu retorted, if you ever come home safe, God has not spoken through me. He said further, listen, all you peoples. So the king of Israel, he basically saying, you all are my witnesses, right? I'm saying directly, if what I'm saying is right and this senior prophet is a fraud and the king is going to get killed because God spoke through me, then you'll find out because it'll happen, right? Because what besides you're supposed to speak in the name of God is the number one rule of prophecy, of prophets?
I would think that you're always right.
Yes, exactly. That what you say always comes true because you spoke in the name of God. And if you did, then it always happens. If it doesn't happen, then you're a false prophet, and we have another thing that happens to you. It's a little more Tony Soprano, but what can you do?
You're bad.
It's actually not, because it happens in front of everybody. So it's, but in any event, so the king of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah marched upon Ramoth Gilead. Right. So it's an interesting, the commentators note that Jehoshaphat understood the prophecy as, first of all, Jehoshaphat wasn't mentioned. Only Ahab was going to die. So he was like, okay. And it said all the soldiers return home in peace. So he was like, okay, we can go. Because again, this could work out to his benefit. This guy is a long-serving king. So whatever other problems the prophets and religiously we have with Ahav, one thing he has done successfully, and maybe is the first real Israelite king to do so, is plant long roots into the kingdom. For Israel, that hasn't happened yet. So he might have more, it might be something where he's like, oh, if this guy gets knocked off, this could be beneficial to us as the kingdom of Judah. So he's like, yeah, it's okay. I'm willing to go along with this still. And of course, there's a part of him probably, we can assume since he went, that this guy could be wrong, right? There's a conflicting here. It's 400 prophets plus the most senior guy on this side, and this Michayahu on the other side. So he's like, I don't know who's right, but the one who didn't agree didn't say I would die, so I'm good to go. Okay. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you wear your robes. So the king of Israel went into the battle disguised. Believing that they would look for him because he had a lot more dealings with them and a lot more fights with them. Now the king of Aram had instructed his 32 chariot officers, don't attack anyone, small or great, except the king of Israel. Right? The king of Aram's like, look, whatever happens, the only goal today is to kill Ahav. And everyone's like, cool, got it. Just look for Ahav and kill him. But Ahav was at least then smart enough to disguise himself because he was right. That's what they were going to do. So when the chariot officer saw Jehoshaphat, whom they took for the king of Israel, they turned upon him to attack him. And Jehoshaphat cried out. And when the chariot officers became aware that he was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. Right? Because again, they saw one king, good distraction technique, right? Ahab's like they went, there's one guy that looks like a king. Great, let's go get him. And then they got real close to him, and they're like, this is a different Jew. There are two Jewish kings, and we got the wrong one. So they were like, but we were told only to kill Ahab. So they're like, okay, bye. You can continue to run away. We don't care. Then another man drew his bow at random, and he hit the king of Israel between the plates of the armor. And he said to his charioteer, turn the horses around and get me behind the lines. I'm wounded. The battle raged all day long, and the king remained propped up in the chariot facing Aram. The blood from the wound ran down into the hollow of the chariot, and at dusk he died. As the sun was going down, a shout went through the army, every man to his own town, every man to his own district. So they retreated because the king died. So the king died and was brought to Samaria. They buried the king in Samaria, and they flushed out the chariot at the pool of Samaria. Thus the dogs lapped up his blood, and the whores bathed in it. Terrific. In accordance with the word of God, the word that God had spoken through Elijah the prophet. I guess the prostitutes bathed there, the commentator says, as they were not particular about bathing in a more modest location. Just so you know, I guess the commentator wouldn't understand. So all those things. So again, right? Because the prophet, again, it's worth adding in this story because this was a story about prophecy, really. And we get these new characters just so that we can get a story about prophecy. But in the end, they want to remind us that the words of Eliyahu came true because they'd been spoken.
Was it Eliyahu or Michael?
No, in this case, with the dogs lapping up the blood of him.
Oh,
so it's both
right.
of their
That's
prophecies came true.
Right.
They were just two separate ones. The prophecy that he would die in this engagement came true, and Eliyahu's previous prophecy that the dogs would lap at his blood and whatnot came true. And other things still will come true, obviously. The other events of Ahab's reign and all his actions, the ivory palace that he built, and all the towns that he fortified, man, that would be cool to find. An ivory palace, are all recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. Right, and even the commentator notes here, this is the great thing. Every time I read this book, I go, man, if only we had that book. Because there are these two books, the Annals of the Kings of Israel and the Annals of the Kings of Judah, that recorded like the economy of the state and the history and stuff. Of all the stuff you read about Ahab, did you know he had a giant ivory palace?
No, not till now.
Right, not till now, because it's like, why would we mention it? It's not relevant. You know what he did do? Disrespect the prophets. Right? Like the book is just concerned on the Deuteronomic historian perspective that precisely that if he does what's good religiously, then they're a good king. If they don't, they're a bad king. And that's really all that matters. And I say that because if the king reigns for a really long time and there's peace and the economy is good and the king has idols in the temple, that's the worst king ever. And if the economy sucks and he reigns for a short time and everyone's miserable, but he restores the temple and does worship correctly, he's a great king. That is the sole standard that these books are concerned with, just so you understand.
But they're not right that all the kings of Israel are not in compliance with.
Yeah. Well, it's basically impossible for the kings. Yeah. And God says we read God says as much when the split happens. Sure. That look, it's going to be basically impossible for these kings to do this, but he kind of says, and you can feel how you want about it. He's like, God's like, hey, this whole thing is a lark. The point is not there. The exile is going to happen. Like God's like, like just understand that there's going to be more history, and God understands that there's going to be a lot more history. But the people never do. We don't think about history that way, right?
Is it not fair to say the exile, obviously, of Israel is Israelites is not good because they don't hold together. They get assimilated after Assyria takes them over. Where the exile of Judah stays intact.
No, it doesn't.
Well, somewhat.
Well, I mean, in the sense that they return when the community, when it goes, there's a difference in how the dispersions happen under the Assyrian and Babylonian empires. And when the Babylonians bring the leaders of Judah to Babylon, they do keep together. They hold themselves together, and then they only have to wait less than 80 years to see themselves restored.
But even after the Romans dispersed them, it was the people of Judah that still kept going. I don't think we know much about Gad and
well, this is where the idea of the lost tribes comes from.
Right.
Yes,
they assimilated.
Well, who knows? I mean, we don't. That's why they're lost, right? I mean, maybe some people say they were actually some of them were actually the groups that are B'nai Menashe and Beta Israel, and these groups that fled off at different times.
Perhaps the origin of the ridiculed professors in their ivory towers.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But it's just interesting that he's like, to me, it's very interesting, right? Because it's like this, right? He says it was called such because a large portion of it was furnished with ivory. Just want you to know that it wasn't like the Taj Mahal or something. I don't know.
They didn't build the walls out of ivory or
right, exactly. It wasn't built.
It wasn't like Solomon's gold, like
right, exactly. It wasn't entirely built out of ivory, which would have been a truly historic amount. Like at that point, I can only assume there used to be elephants in Israel, and then we're no longer.
It would have been rather.
It would take a lot of ivory to make that happen. Okay. So as God had said would happen, in verse 40, Achav rested with his ancestors, and his son, Achaziah is another way of saying that, succeeded him as king.
Do we ever see Micaiah again, or does he just kind of disappear?
I think he's one of those one-offers. I don't think we do.
He just went to prison and then doesn't come back.
That would be great. Right. Let's see what happens. Yehoshaphat, son of Asa, had become king of Judah in the 4th year of King Achav of Israel. So now we're just going back to talking about, this is the transition point so that we can start talking about Judah again, because we've been talking about Israel for a while. But again, Achav had a really long reign, so we were talking about it for a while. Yehoshaphat was 35 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 25 years. His mother's name was Azura, daughter of Shilchi. Oh, that's a weird name. Okay, Azuva and Shilchi. He followed closely the course of his father Asa and did not deviate from it, doing what was pleasing to God. What do we think about that? We love that. That's great. Good for him. King Yehoshaphat. Hey, doing good stuff like his dad Asa. However, the shrines did not cease to function. The people still sacrificed and offered at shrines. Right? Because what are shrines? Convenient. They're a convenience that they put up, right? It helps him get more popular. It's good to be popular, right? And if you manage all these different state-run, places to do worship and stuff, then it makes people's lives easier when they're trying to do all their religious obligations. If you were to make them only have to go to Jerusalem, that would be harder. But obviously, we know what it is that the Deuteronomic historian wants for them to do. So he's saying, just so you know, that part not so good. We're still going to ding him, but overall, we'll take it.
Did Esau allow that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Also
just
allowed
depending
that
on his
too.
father's.
Right. He basically, as they said, he did basically all the same stuff his dad did. He was just like, I see no reason to deviate, and it worked out well for him. As for the other events of Jehoshaphat's reign and the valor he displayed in battle, which is not what it sounded like when he ran through those chariot men, but to be fair, who knows? He's a king. Who knows? It could be anything. They are recorded in the annals of the kings of Judah. He also stamped out the remaining consecrated workers who had survived in the land from the time of his father Asa. So there were male cult prostitutes that were there in the time of his father Asa. So even though he didn't get rid of all public idolatry and all sacrifice to God at foreign at other shrines that are not the temple, he did stamp out consecrated workers, I guess we're calling them. In the the Yeter Hakadesh. Yeah.
Pardon a prurient thought, but how does a temple prostitute fit in with religion? What was the thinking in those days?
I know what purpose sometimes temple prostitutes served in other religions. I don't know what purpose they served in ours. I can only assume it was an imitation of,
Greek?
quite frankly, no. I mean, all of them, all the religions of the ancient, not the Greeks. I don't think this would be the ancient Near East. They're Moab and Ammon and what they're doing for their Baal worshippers would have these temple prostitutes of different kinds.
And what was the religious connection for them, Rabbi?
I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm,
Well, not all religions value like celibacy or like
Sure.
in the priesthood. So like there are many ancient religions that value fertility and sex as like having real spiritual power. So
I see.
So this would be a symbol of fertility, even though it's.
I think so.
Okay.
Again, I never did take a class on temple prostitutes.
No,
You may be surprised to learn.
did you take a?
No.
Secular schools are much more likely to do that.
Yeah.
But in any event, right. But in any event, so this is one of those things that it could be just imitating a practice of the nations around us. If they have these consecrated workers, then perhaps at one point the temple in Jerusalem was like, hey, maybe we should also have some of these guys. That sounds great. And so they were like, and so it was this king it was Jehoshaphat who was like, hey, we're not going to do that anymore.
To the best of your knowledge, did the Egyptians have temple prostitutes?
I think so, but I don't remember when and at what times. I'm not an expert in Egyptian religion. I know that I know about the bird on no, I don't even I'm going to be really offensive now, but there's nobody who still practices Egyptian religion, so we'll be okay. Probably. We'll see. The internet's crazy.
That's right. You get a lot of messages.
Right.
I'm an Egyptian.
Right. An Egyptian who still worships Anubis and whatnot. And Ra. Yeah, that's what Prince of Egypt taught me was the biggest one. If I'm wrong, it's because the cartoon misled me. Okay. There was no king, verse 48, there was no king in Edom. A viceroy acted as king. So in other words, we believe this means that viceroy was a Judean. They were a vassal state at this time of the of Judah. So remember, Judah goes up and down in power, and this is kind of just saying that this. So yeah, Jehoshaphat constructed Tarshish ships. So large ships from Tarshish. Tarshish is a port in Syria, but still Tarsus is still is a city. I think.
Well, the Russians have their base in Syria, I think.
Right. Yes. There's still a naval facility there. But in any event, they built big ships there back in the day too. So he constructed these Tarshish ships to sail to Ophir for gold, just as Solomon had done. But he did not sail because the ships were wrecked at Etzion Gaver, the port city of the kingdom of Judah next to the Red Sea. Okay, so they had one. Interesting. It's interesting they had a port on the Red Sea. And he was like, and that's actually a really great place to be if you want to go get gold, right? Because you can sail down and then into India to where Somalia and
Africa.
Yeah.
right, and those countries are on the Horn of that area. And so that's probably where Solomon got his gold from, unless he sailed over to Libya or something. From why he would go there and not Egypt. I don't cheaper rates. I'm not sure, but in any event, but he didn't do it because all the ships were wrecked in the harbor. Then Ahaziah, son of Ahav, proposed to Jehoshaphat, "Let my servants sail on the ships with your servants." But Jehoshaphat would not agree. Interestingly enough, the commentator said that he was unwilling, perhaps because he thought God would not be pleased. So there were very cordial relations at this time. It was, again, I said before, about the closest time there ever was since the split between the kingdoms, but not willing to let them. They were good sailors because they had close relations with the kingdom of Sidon, which is right next to Israel, and they had a lot of people who were good at sailing, but they were like, well, we don't want them. Jehoshaphat rested with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of his forefather David, and his son Jehoram succeeded him as king. Meanwhile, Ahaziah, son of, so now we'll just, we're going to switch back up north. Meanwhile, Ahaziah, son of Ahav, had become king of Israel in Samaria in the 17th year of King Jehoshaphat of Judah, which means they would share 8 years together. He reigned over Israel, 2 years, because he's only there for 2 years, right? Because remember, that's right, he was promised that it wouldn't last very long for him, because he's going to, well, Kingdom of Israel is going to do Kingdom of Israel things. He did what was displeasing to God, following in the footsteps of his father and his mother. We have to mention his mother because, of course, yeah, Isabel is right. And in those of Jeroboam, son of Nevat, who had caused Israel to sin, right? So he continued all the idolatrous practices of his parents and the worship of calves, as Jeroboam had instituted. He worshipped Baal and bowed down to him. He provoked the anger of the Eternal, the God of Israel, just as his father had done. And that's the end of the first book of Kings.
Cheery.
A little cheery indeed. Yeah. So, I mean, Ahaziah, again, we were already told about Ahaziahu, right? We were told Ahaziahu was going to be a bad king and that he was the one from whom the kingdom of Israel would be taken because Ahav was such a bad king. And Isabel was such a bad queen. They really want me to throw Isabel in every time I mention how bad, right? Because again, who's Ahav? He's like the Achashverosh type guy, right? He's a bad king, but his badness is mostly attributed to his being an idiot, and being foolish, and maliciously misled by his wife, Isabel, who a lot of the blame also goes to. I'm not saying goes to majority, because obviously this guy was blamed a lot. It's not like he wasn't blamed. It's not like they were like, oh, he would have been the best king ever if only he didn't have that wife. But nonetheless, I'm just mentioning. Anyway, any thoughts on the conclusion of this book before we open up the next? Doesn't have to be. Let me find Second Kings. So, okay, time for the sequel then. Second Kings. There's no boogaloo joke I can make that works here. It just doesn't rhyme. So, okay. So after Ahab's death, Moab rebelled against Israel. Ahazyahu fell through the lattice in his upper chamber at Samaria and was injured. Maybe he was very drunk. Could be.
Who exactly was Aiden Steinsaltz? He's a big commentator.
Yes, Aiden Steinsaltz was actually called like he's like the Rock commentator. He wrote he's like in many ways he's like one of the most prolific Torah commentary redactors since Rashi, who wasn't really a redactor, but I call him that because a lot of his commentary on the Torah is really just passing along like the appropriate midrash that helps you think about that line with the line, so that you'll read his commentary, which will share, yes, and the midrash thinks that this story, which is applicable, also relates, or he says very simple things to explain. And that's something that Steinsaltz essentially did for the Talmud, what Rashi did for the Torah and for English, which in Steinsaltz's translation, his commentary was also translated into English.
There is another midrash though besides Steinsaltz.
Steinsaltz doesn't create midrash, and neither did Rashi. Rashi showed midrash in the commentary to help you understand the verse. Whereas before Rashi, you would have had to have looked up that midrash on your own. It wasn't organized for you by the verse. That's essentially what he allowed to have happen through his commentary. But he also didn't just do that. He also explained things at a basic level. The Pshat, Rashi is the master of the Pshat. And so the simple, like the surface level interpretation and explanation. And so his commentary is also a baseline for understanding for that reason. But he doesn't create midrash, and neither does Steinsaltz. Steinsaltz essentially is taking the works of the commentators and putting them into the Talmud and the Torah, so that you will then be able to better understand the text as the commentators would like you to understand it, as opposed to having to have a Mikra Gedolot open. I don't have one in the room, I don't think, but I own a set of Mikra Gedolot. That's plural, but it means the big text, right? Mikra is like a line of a verse of Torah, and so it's like Gedolot also ligadel is to develop or to grow, and so in this case, what you have is the Meforshim, the Torah commentators, put in this separate book, the Mikra Gedolot, and it has the verse, and then around it, like you might see in a page of Talmud, you'll see the commentators, what they say about it. So you could do that. Steinsaltz has done a commentary, and this has a version of it up here, which allows basically, it just takes relevant commentary and pulls it in so that it can explain better.
Exegesis. Sports.
It brings in their exegesis, yes. It brings in their commentary. And not that he never puts his own in, but that's mostly what he's doing. I keep it open because it's more convenient for me than what I used to do in here is I would just go down and I'd be like, oh, this is an interesting verse. Let me see. What are the commentaries? I see there's we got two Rashis. So, okay, here it says there's a note about the lattice that just explains what it is and some other. But I heard that it's also called this in German. Like, it's just Rashi talking about language, which is something he's prone to do. And then a really, really basic, and he became ill, an expression of sickness. Yeah, That's usually what that is. Thanks, Rashi. So if I'd just done that, I'd have wasted time and given you nothing. Whereas opposed, I can tell, I mean, if I need it, I can go into it and see where they came from. But I generally just have this open to look at it so that we can do it a little faster. But Steinsaltz is a Torah commentator, one of the most prolific. I actually don't know. I don't read any Kabbalah, so I'm not 40 yet. So I'm saving that for
13 rows.
right. I'm saving that. I'm saving all of it.
Some of us are.
It's my excuse to not have to do it until I'm 30, which I really don't like. I'm just not a Kabbalist.
Then you'll be fully enlightened when you reach.
Oh, God forbid. You know, better, right? We're gonna start studying Kohelet. When we start studying
That will be
Kohelet, you'll see it's Kohelet basically says, yeah, better to be ignorant of certain things. Better to live a good life and not worry about all those things. Anyway, so let's get back to Achaziah, who fell. Maybe he was drunk. I don't know. He fell through the lattice in the upper chamber. So right, there would have been like maybe there was some. This is why we need
Who knew Putin was alive in a prior reincarnation?
Because Achaziah got pushed off the roof. Essentially, right, he gets pushed off. He fell off a roof. But you know they have interior courtyards, so it probably was he fell through an interior. Through that, something like that, and was injured. So he sent messengers, and they said, "Go inquire of Baal Zevuv," which is a great name, and this is as close as we get to Beelzebub in the Hebrew Talmud, Torah rather, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover from this injury. This guy, he's even upsetting me, and I live thousands of years later, and I'm like, this guy. You just want to smack him in the side of the head a little bit. And be like, what's wrong with you? But an angel of God said to Eliyahu Atishbi, go and confront the messengers of the king of Samaria and say to them, is there no God in Israel that you go to inquire of Baal Zevuv, the god of Ekron? That's what we were just saying, right? He's like you're like, oh, I really need an answer about life and death. I know who to ask. That guy over there. And it's like there's a doctor standing in front of you, right? It's like maybe don't be stupid, right? But oh well. Okay. Assuredly, thus says God, right? Assuredly, V'lachen ka'amar Adonai, you shall not rise from the bed you are lying on, but you shall die. Vayelech Eliyahu. Eliah, I guess it says here. That's funny. So Elijah went. The messengers returned to Achaziah, and he asked, why have you come back? Right? Because they came back really quickly, and he was like, you couldn't possibly have gone all the way to Ekron and back, so why are you here? They answered him, a man came toward us and said to us, go back to the king who sent you, and say to him, thus says the Eternal, is there no God in Israel that you must send to inquire of Baal Zevuv, the god of Ekron? Assuredly, you shall not rise from the bed you are lying on, but shall die. So he had to come back and tell you this right away. What sort of man was it, the king asked them, who came toward you and said these things to you? A hairy man, they replied, with a leather belt tied around his waist. Well, that's Eliyahu Atishbi. What a great way to be remembered. It's just like, who was Eliyahu Atishbi? Tishbi. He was very hairy and he has a big leather belt. I know that guy. It's just like, I know him. That's Eliyahu, right? That's here they're gonna call him in Hebrew, they're gonna call him Eliyahu Hatishbi. I'm not really sure why.
Esau was a hairy man too, wasn't he?
Esau,
Yes. To be fair, basically all ethnic Jews are hairy dudes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not to any Jewish men. This is not. You're not like, oh yeah, I don't know what this is about. It's a very common thing among ethnic Jews. So it would have been funnier if he'd said that doesn't narrow it down. It's a hairy man with a leather belt. That's every guy I knew in Great Neck, New York. I mean, Samaria. Sorry. What can you say? Okay. But in this case, he knows exactly who it is, and it's Eliyahu, of course. Then he sent to him a captain of 50 with his 50 men. He climbed up to him and found him sitting at the top of a hill. Agent of God, he said to him, by order of the king, come down. So this captain comes to Eliyahu and says, hey, guy, you got to come speak to us. Eliyahu replied to the captain of the 50, if I am an agent of God, let fire come down from heaven. We've seen this trick before. Fire come down from heaven and consume you with your 50 men. And fire came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. You got to remember, Eliyahu is not to be trifled with, right? He's got the mantle of God. This is the most powerful, right? So Eliyahu's like, if I'm an agent of God, this is going to be a bad day for you, and surely it was. The king then sent to him another captain with his 50 men, and he addressed him as follows. Agent of God, Isha Elohim, by order of the king, Ko Amar HaMelech. Which just remember, this is right. I want to give you the Hebrew because it's like, right, thus says the king. Hey, Isha Elohim. If you take this in the Hebrew, it's much more insulting. You kind of get a little bit why he's like, fireball. Right? Because he's like, he turns into Dr. Mario and he's like, boo, boo, boo. Because this guy's being really rude to an agent of God. And what did we learn from King Yehoshaphat of Judah? He said to Achav, he was like, hey, guy, you're being really rude to a prophet of God. They're annoying, I get it, but you cannot do that, right? Because Jehoshaphat's a good king. And he's like, hey, there's rules. Well, this guy doesn't care about the rules. And he sends the king, and the king goes, hey, Isha Elohim. He's mocking him. He says, Kol Amar HaMelech, right? Instead of Kol Amar Adonai, like prophets say. So anyway, it's really insulting. By order of the king, come down at once. But Eliyahu answered him, if I am an agent of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume me. Pew, pew. And fire from God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. Now we got 102 guys who've been burned by...
Presumably not sending a soothing aroma to God like sacrifices.
We would, God forbid. No, never. Because, no. We don't sacrifice people. No. This isn't that kind of thing. This is just like, and fireball. Right. Just like, and they're gone. They just consume them utterly, right? They're gone. Then he sent a third captain of 50 with his 50 men. The third captain of 50 climbed to the top, knelt before Eliyahu, and implored him, saying, oh, agent of God, please have regard for my life and the lives of these 50 servants of yours. We're getting a much different tone from this captain. Must have heard what went on with the last two. Already fire has come from heaven and consumed the first two captains of 50 and their men. I beg you, have regard for my life. Then the angel of God said to Eliyahu, go down with him. Do not be afraid of him. So Eliyahu rose and went down with him to the king. Right? Really effective thing God is doing here, right? Mm-hmm. Which is also waiting for the guy and the men who are with him to be people who fear God, respect the office, waiting for that rather than going with the people who would probably just kill him on the way or something. Right. He's like, but okay, here, good news. God says go, so he goes. Because again, I try to remind you every time we talk a little bit about prophets that prophets kind of don't work the same way as us. I think they kind of get their brains semi-melted by the God thing happening. And so they're just like, okay, God said go, I'll go down. Like he doesn't have to think about it. He goes. So now Elijah spoke to the king, Ko Amar Adonai, because you sent messengers to inquire of Baal Zevuv, the god of Ekron, as if there were no God in Israel whose word you could seek. Assuredly you shall not rise from the bed that you are lying on, but you shall die. Basically, he said, I'm just going to give you the same message I gave to you through those other guys. You brought me from the top of the hill I was enjoying, and that's fine. But, like, I'm just going to give you the same message. I gave it to you already. You didn't want it over the phone. Fine, I'm here. You're still going to die. And Achaziah died. according to the word of God that Eliyahu had spoken. Right? More important than the guy is understanding that the word of God came true. Yehoram succeeded him as king in the second year of King Yehoram. That's going to be this is going to be confusing for everyone. We got two Yehorams on the throne now. In the second year of King Yehoram, son of Yehoshaphat of Judah, for he had no son. Oh, okay. Okay, his brother Yehoram, got it. The other events of Ahaziah's reign and his actions are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. Whatever he did in those 2 years before he fell through the lattice and died. And now we get a story. So when God was about to take Eliyahu up to heaven, it says here in a whirlwind, but it could be in a storm. But we'll get to that story. But they're just letting you know that story is going to happen soon. Eliyahu and Elisha had set out from Gilgal. So now we're getting our this is just him and his traveling companion story. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for God has sent me on to Bethel. As God lives and as you live," said Elisha, "I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. So he allows him to come with him. So he's like, "Hey, I'm going to go. You just hang out." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to leave you," because he knows what's going to happen. And he's like, "Hey, I've been your apprentice for a long time. And hey, the whole point was that I would have," he's like, "No, I'm going to stick with you. We're going to be good." Okay. Disciples of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that God will take your master away from you today?" He replied, "I know it too. Be silent." Right? So Elisha knows, these other prophets know, Eliyahu knows, but nobody knows that everybody else knows. Right? Eliyahu doesn't know that Elisha knows. Eliyahu doesn't know these other people know. They don't know that Eliyahu knows. So that's confusing enough. Then Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, for God has sent me on to Jericho. As God lives, and as you live," said Elisha, "I will not leave you." So they went on to Jericho. The disciples of the prophets who were at Jericho came over to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that God will take your master away from you today?" He replied, "I know it too. Be silent." Elijah said to him, "Stay here, for God has sent me on to the Jordan." He's making a nice big loop. He went like a nice big loop, but now he's coming back up to Jericho is in the basically due east of Jerusalem, to the border of the Jordan almost. So going from there to the Jordan is not far from to the Jordan. So they went on a little bit further. 50 of the disciples of the prophets followed and stood by it. They're like, "This is going to be a big moment. Maybe we'll see it if we just stand out here and watch." And stood by at a distance as the two of them stopped at the Jordan. Thereupon Elijah took his mantle and, rolling it up, he struck the water. It divided to the left and to the right and left, so that the two of them crossed over on dry land.
Moses' story.
Let's see.
Well, this was
Very clearly, right. So now, there are two things very clearly. Obviously, that's supposed to be the big alarm bell that goes off in your brain. It's like, yes, the Red Sea, like it's the splitting of the sea. That is very important. It's also less important because it's obviously just the two of them and it's this thing. But it shows what about Eliyahu?
How great a prophet he was.
Exactly, right? It puts him up in the ranks. It obviously, not Moshe, because we say nobody's like Moshe. But if anybody ever came close to being like Moshe, now the rabbis will say if anybody came close to being like Moshe, it was Rabbi Akiva. But and later we'll follow Maimonidean people will say from Moshe to Moshe there was nobody like Moshe, meaning that Maimonides was essentially like Moshe. But from the perspective of the Deuteronomic historian, the person who was most like Moshe without being Moshe was Eliyahu. And this gives us that story in which we can be like, ah, yes, the Jordan split. Now, if you've been to the Jordan, you know that it's only about 12 feet wide. Let me correct you if you think it's like the Chesapeake Bay or something.
Or something.
Yeah, from that side to this side is about the width of the Jordan in most places. So we used to go tubing there. I mean, Israelis go and have a good time. It's a fun, but it's not wide. It's not that deep either. So the point of this is, if you were doing it, it would be like you could imagine the CGI pretty easily. It'd be like splitting a small stream. And while you're doing it, you're like, wow, that's impressive because like that kind of thing doesn't happen. But at the same time, it's not like a sea, right? It's not like you think there are like fish swimming in the background. You see again, I'm pulling Prince of Egypt for like, but yeah.
But a couple thousand years ago, it wasn't wider.
No, it would be almost impossible for it to be wider because of how the land is shaped. So yeah, now there are some parts that are a little wider, but it's again like the Jordan. Part of the reason in the Christian Bible they use it for baptisms is because it's not big. It's really easy, and in fact they still use it for that. There are kibbutzim that run businesses where they take Christian tourists into the Jordan, and because it's very easy, the banks are very easy to get up and down, and it's it's a nice easy
I'll ask a question. When comparing it to Moses, we're talking about the Reed Sea, but it had to split in order to allow the Jews to cross the Jordan to go to at the time of coming to Israel.
Oh, in Judges? In Judges or?
Yeah, and when they cross over with Joshua.
Right, with Joshua.
Didn't they lay down stones?
Yeah, I think they made makeshift bridges to get across. Because again, it's not that deep. It's only like in places it's only like 4 feet deep.
All right.
So like you could ford it also in certain places. You could take big oxen and just, if you ever played Oregon Trail, you understand. You can just sometimes have them try and walk across, and like there are places where that's doable. Again, it's not like a big river. It's in many places a very small, narrow river.
Who's Rabbi Akiva? Remind me.
Rabbi Akiva was one of the rabbis in one of the major rabbis of the Mishnaic period. He also he died in the following was it Shabtai Tzvi or oh God, which one was it? One of the false messiahs. It might be Shabtai Tzvi, but I'm trying to think. But he was like, he just went all in on this guy, and the Romans killed him for spreading the news of this guy. Because again, it wasn't just with the Jesus person that there was a right there were people who claimed to be messiahs and had followers even among Jews. Anyway, he's the one who got pulled out on the rolled out on the machine and pulled apart. Yeah, it's like Spain.
The story that always stuck in my mind is as they're flaying him alive and he's dying, he's saying the Shema.
Right.
And his disciples say to him, "Even now, Rabbi?" He says, "I always hoped I'd be able to say it as I was dying." Right,
that it's a mitzvah to die with the Shema, to say it right as you die. And it's part of the vidui that we do you do for someone when they're about to die if they can't say it themselves, is saying the Shema, because again, it's a mitzvah, to do that. And so he was saying, I never thought I could literally do it. Someone would have to do it for me, or I would die and it would be done posthumously for me. But like, if you get hit in the back of the head, you don't know, you know what I mean? So he was like, I never thought I'd have the opportunity, but like, since they're murdering me slowly, I actually do have the opportunity now to do it until they actually kill me. Which he was just turning a really, really bad negative into, I'm not going to call it a positive, but a pious moment.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
Very nice story. Bob Conroy is a very pious, wonderful Catholic man who came to Debbie's introduction to Judaism because he wanted to learn more about it. and came away with very deep respect for the faith. Well, he was friends with Bill Nathan, who was a child psychiatrist, a pediatrician, a wonderful man and member of the congregation.
Mm-hmm.
Bob was with Bill as Bill was dying, and Bob said the Shema for him. I've always loved that.
That's good.
That's a good story.
Absolutely. And I just want to make one more note on this verse 8 here. Also, again, I say this tongue in cheek like I do a lot of things, but the mantle is magic, essentially.
Mhm.
The mantle itself is imbued, it seems, with or some of the ability of the prophet. That'll come in handy to notice because it's going to keep going beyond Eliyahu. So they crossed the Jordan. As they were crossing, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" So they're right. What do you want me to give you? Elisha said, "Let a double portion of your spirit pass on to me." Right? And that makes some sense because what does an heir get? Back then, the idea was that every child of a guy gets an equal amount, except for the oldest son, who gets a double of that
Okay.
standard amount, and then they get they split what's left over. So he's essentially like your kid. Essentially, I want, though it's essentially saying here, I want to be twice the prophet you were. Though to be fair, I don't think that's I don't think he's saying it in a negative way. Like, I want to be super powerful or, I think he's just saying, you were great and I want to live up to your memory. And how best do you do that? Any of us that have progeny, whether they are children or students or whatever, want them to exceed us. Because by doing so, they make us even greater. Like that's an inherent part understanding of the rabbinic tradition.
A good student impresses master.
Right, and that idea is something that we want. We actively hope that our students or children or whoever will learn from us and also do even better, be even richer, even happier, even more secure, even more whatever. We just want more for them, and that's essentially what he's asking for. I think he's not saying I want to be better than you. I don't think it's bad like that. I think it's good. You have asked a difficult thing, Elijah said. If you see me as I am being taken from you, this will be granted to you. If not, it will not.
And yet at every step of the way, he's told Elisha, stay here. Don't come with me.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you got to want it, right? This is the same idea of the injunction, the idea that the rabbis say you should turn down people who want to convert to Judaism. It's kind of like he's earning it. This is like the last hazing, kind of, before he gets to be. He's like, okay, well, he's like, guess what? It's not up to me. He's gonna say, you've asked for a big thing, but if you're here at that moment, that'll be a sign. God wants you to be what you've asked for, and if you don't, then I guess not. But this is very much Elijah's way, in which he's like, look, none of this is up to me. You're saying you want to be double me, like I have a say in that, as if I'm me by any virtue of being me.
Are you sure of what you want? Ask.
It could be a little bit of that too, but I think mostly he's trying to teach him a lesson here, which is I'm not Elijah because I'm Elijah. I'm Elijah because God puts words in my mouth and tells me what to do. If you can truly do that, then you can be, if you can do that double as well as I did, then you can be double Elijah. But if you can't, then you won't, because it doesn't matter who you are. This is from the prophetic. This isn't a general rule for every human being to say, but from the prophetic side, the prophet doesn't matter. The prophet is an instrument. And Elijah understands this much better than, if there's one area he surpasses Moshe, it would be in understanding this. Anyway. Okay. So they're going to keep kibitzing. As they kept on walking and talking, a fiery chariot, a rechev ish, a fire train. It's fun, not train. It's chariot, but today we use that's the same route as train today. Anyway, a rechav ish. Sorry, I can't pronounce today. A fiery chariot, vesuse ish, with fire horses. Sorry, fiery horses. Fine, same thing. Fire horses suddenly appeared and separated one from the other. And Eliyahu went up to heaven in a sa'ara,
It says whirlwind.
yeah, right, a storm or a whirlwind. He goes up to heaven, as though he were riding on the chariot drawn by horses of fire.
Mhm.
Elisha saw it, and he cried out, Avi, Avi, Rechev Yisrael. Oh, Father, Father, my Father, Israel's chariots and riders. And when he could no longer see him, he grasped his garments and rent them in two. Because he was sad that he spent his life essentially serving Elijah, and now Elijah was gone. He picked up Elijah's mantle, which had dropped from him, and he went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. Taking the mantle that had dropped from Elijah, he struck the water and said, Where is the Eternal, the God of Elijah? As he too struck the water, it parted to the right and to the left, and Elisha crossed over. When the disciples of the prophets at Jericho saw him from a distance, they exclaimed, The spirit of Elijah has settled on Elisha. And they went to meet him and bowed low before him to the ground. They said to him, Your servants have 50 able men with them. Let them go and look for your master. Perhaps the Spirit of God has carried him off and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley. Do not send them, Elisha replied. Why? Because Elisha knows he's not there. Because what did he do? He goes and says, this is the key. What happened to, this is the question I'm going to ask when we get to the end of the story. What happened to Elijah? This is why they're asking this. He says he went up in a fiery chariot. He was taken off into the sky, into the heavens. And they said, maybe we should go look for him. And Elisha's like, you don't get it. No. But they kept pressing him for a long time until Elisha finally said, very well, send them. So they sent out 50 men who searched for 3 days, but did not find him. They came back to him while he was still in Jericho, and he said to them, I told you not to go.
I had Norman Greenbaum's Spirit in the Sky. That's where I go. Something like that.
I know the song.
Yeah.
What's? Oh, okay, yeah. Oh.
I know those
Yeah.
That's where I go. I go when I die.
And so
Chariot.
Elisha's going to do some miracles. The leaders of the town said to Elisha, look, the town is a pleasant place to live in, as my Lord can see, but the water is bad and the land causes bereavement. In other words, it makes people sick. The water makes people sick, and they die from it. He responded, bring me a new dish and put salt in it. And they brought it to him. He went to the spring and threw salt into it, and he said, thus says God, Ko Amar Adonai, I heal this water. No longer shall death and bereavement come from it.
What's the symbolism there? Throwing the salt in the water.
That salt should have made the water worse, not better, and less able to be drinkable, because salt water is not drinkable. But in this case, it purified it. Yeah. The water has remained wholesome to this day in accordance with the words spoken by Elisha. So what's this doing? It's giving us some Elijah miracles, and it's giving us some of the language, right? We would say this came true by the word spoken by Elijah. Now it's by the word spoken by Elisha. We're getting some this is Elisha's origin story all rushed into one. We can make this like 2 seasons of TV if we really wanted to, probably. Then we get the very best story in the entire Tanakh. We finally reached it. I cannot be happier to share this moment with you. Okay. Elisha's got one more miracle. From there, he went up to Beit El. You know those northern kingdomers and their badness. As he was going up the road, some little boys came out of the town and jeered at him, saying, "Go away, bald head or bald one. Go away, bald guy." They were making fun of him. The commentators say it is unknown whether Elisha was indeed bald. They are still maintaining his virility thousands of years later. They're like, maybe this dude wasn't bald. Maybe he shaved his head. No, they're saying apparently these children wish to accentuate the difference between him and his master, because Elijah was known as a very hairy man. So what are they really doing? The commentators are saying they're not just kids making fun of a guy. They're refuting him being the prophet inheritor of his master's legacy. That is how the rabbis can justify what Elisha's about to do. Yeah. Because oof, it's a lift. You're gonna say that's the excuse you came up with. It was a better excuse before I know what Elisha did. Yeah. Okay. So they yell at him. They're not happy. And here we get the Dubim. The doves, the many bears. He turned around and looked at them and cursed them in the name of God. Thereupon 2 she-bears came out of the woods and mangled 42 of the children.
And you say that's a good story. I found it to be unbearable.
Say good. Did he say good?
Unbearable. He went on from there to Mount. By the way, that's it. There's no lesson set after. It's like mangled 42 of them, and then the chapter ends. It says, and he went on from there to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria.
But you didn't say it was a good story. You just said it was the best or something.
I love that story. It is hysterical. There is no reason for it. They already gave you 2 miracles. They wanted a third. Yeah. And what they do here is they show that he has this. I mean, like, this gives you a little bit of kind of the power of destruction that you saw when Elijah would summon. Of course, Elijah fought the prophets of Baal and summoned all those fireballs to kill all those soldiers that came after him. This guy's got bears. But it's a big power, I guess. This is just to show he has the power over, his curses come true instantly, right? And so don't mess with Elisha is really the moral of this.
It asserts his power and
right.
I hesitate to say this because I know I'm opening Pandora's box.
No, you're okay.
And I don't want to be disrespectful, but there's a parallel to me. This, in a way, is the Jewish ascension, if not the Jewish resurrection. Elijah goes up to heaven. He still lives. His disciples carry his word. Elisha, his disciple, carries his word in the world. And that similarity has always struck me.
Yeah. And so that's an interesting lead into the question of what happens to Elijah, right? Clearly the other prophets and stuff don't understand, can't believe what has happened because it's never happened before. Elijah is the only person who never died. Right? Mm-hmm. Elijah doesn't die, is what the rabbis believe. Elijah is brought to hang out with God. For what purpose? Do you remember? You should know the purpose. We talk about it every year at the Passover Seder.
To announce the coming of Mashiach.
Yes, that the Messiah will come. And when the Messiah comes, one of the ways you will know who the Messiah is the Messiah will be heralded by Eliyahu Hanavi. And Eliyahu will come down, maybe in his fiery chariot with his fire horses, which would be very cool, and help with the belief aspect because fire horses don't exist. But they could exist if they come down with Elijah. This is the only time we hear about them. So it is also weird. It's like heaven is usually not the place we associate with fire in America. Certainly in American and then in Christian culture, you think of fire as a different place. But all this fire stuff belongs up there. I'm just saying. It takes them up top. The horses in the chariot anyway. So Elijah doesn't die. He lives. He goes and lives with God. And he's still there. He's hanging out. And theoretically he'll come back because when he comes back, we'll say, Eliyahu, we recognize you because you're so hairy and you're still here and you're Eliyahu and we can see that. And that will mean we can know who the Messiah is because again, Judaism laid out very clear Very not. I wouldn't say very clear. Pretty clear. Rubric. A pretty clear rubric for how you can tell whether the Messiah has come. And the rabbis are concerned with it very clearly because they think that era may be approaching soon. Joke's on them. It wasn't that soon, but joke's on us too, actually, because it would have been way better had it been. But in any event, Elijah's not dead. He's up in heaven. That's where he went with to hang out with God in his chariot.
My favorite part of the Passover Seder, we put out a cup of wine for Elijah, and the door is open so that he might come in and drink from the wine and to tell us he's come back and the Messiah is coming. And the kids are called up to look at the glass of wine and decide whether Elijah has drank from it or not. I love that part of the Seder.
I mean, it's a really great part of the Seder. I agree with you that what it's especially great for is activating the imagination.
Yes.
Because it makes you ask so many good. The Seder is designed to lead people to ask questions, so much so that we suggest questions in case you can't come up with any. 4 of them, specific 5 really, but in any event, yes, it leads to so many questions. Why are we waiting for Elijah? Why will he come and maybe not drink? Will he come and drink and leave us alone and do nothing? Will this be the Passover that he comes and says, it's time to greet the Messiah? It's one of those things. It's a really beautiful part of the ritual. Although, and especially in homes here, it's fine, and it's nice that we have a side door. But but at home, it's so much because you never leave your door up, or at least I very rarely growing up left my door open. And so leaving it open also invites the sound of the Seder and the noise of family and the dinner that comes shortly after you set it out to go out into the same way in a similar way without the commandment to advertise it that we have on Hanukkah, that putting the Hanukkah in the window shows the light of Hanukkah out into the world. And so this is an important part of the Jewish mission as well, and we can thank the rabbis for the ritual, but Eliyahu for hanging out up there and doing whatever Eliyahu's up to. I hope it's been a fun wait. It's been a long time. He's been waiting for a while. The rabbis again are much more convinced that the Messiah is only the whole of history is going to go from basically Moses to like 10 years after they write the Mishnah. And then it just doesn't, because there's no Messiah. I mean, for us. So, because he doesn't do any of the things, nobody does any of the things the Messiah is supposed to do, and there's no Eliyahu. So that's it. We wait for Eliyahu. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Please don't make fun of bald people. If you make fun of bald people, there's a non-zero chance that bears will be summoned to your location. And they mangled 42 children. They are not messing around.
If there is, get in your car and lock the doors.
Keep 2 bears in my garage.
Right, there you go, right. Right, and it's just, yeah.
As Sam said, that story's very unbearable.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's a tough one.
Is there also, I know that Enoch in the book of Genesis is kind of dubious about whether or not he dies.
That's true.
Is that also
my understanding? It's maybe, I'm not sure if Elijah's the only person who never died or is one of very few. Certainly Elijah's non-death is certain because he has a role to play in the future. Although that's obviously being very upfront, that's worked backwards by the rabbis. It's not stated directly here that that's what's going to happen. The rabbis will read that and interpret from that the reason he was brought to heaven was to prepare for his role as herald of the Messiah, because he was like the best prophet we ever had, besides not the greatest prophet, that would be Moses, but maybe the best, might have been the most. Elijah was 100% on the prophet rubric. He did so good that, like, I think there's some understanding that even that he would be the most trustworthy to come back and tell us. Can't use Moses because, first of all, Moses is dead. But also, you can't use Moses because the people never really listened to Moses. So
He
that's the
also
other
made a
thing.
mistake in God's eyes and wasn't allowed. I have a question. You
Sure.
mentioned fire and its symbolism. Well, there's the burning bush. There's the fire on Mount Sinai. Is this a continuation of that symbolism?
There's the tower of fire that leads the Israelites in the desert
Yeah,
when
right.
during the day or at
That's
night.
still
Sorry, it's a
associated
tower
with
of smoke
God,
during
yeah.
the day and a
Yeah.
tower of fire at night. So yeah, there's a lot. I mean, fire. But then again, when you want to show that God is really powerful and cool, fire is a really important. Like fire is is the most powerful of the elements. You can argue about water in large quantities, I guess, but generally, thought of that fire is a very powerful element to. But to be fair, we see all of the elements summoned in God's uh power shows, right? From the storms in Jonah to the winds in various locations to the fire that Elijah summons here and the lightning as well that he summons.
There's an earthquake with Elijah also.
Right, there are earthquakes, and God does earthquakes at at Mount Sinai also. So there's a lot of, it's not just fire, it's all the elements. They'll use all the elements to show how
Fire,
God can
air,
do
and
all the
water,
stuff,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Fire to be destructive or cleansing and purifying.
Purifying.
Right, and they use it for sacrifice, obviously.
In
So.
Christian symbolism, the Holy Spirit is exemplified by the fire.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. Okay. Well, in any event, fire is indeed,
Or
It's-
Billy
it's
Joel
there.
said, "We didn't start the fire."
For some reason, I just thought you said okay. I'm going to take us off YouTube and then I'm